Hey folks, Dan Fedor. It's been a little while since the last dev update, and we're about 3 months since launch, so I thought I'd take time to do a video where we talked about the overall progress of the game, the state it's in now, and some of the things that are coming up. So, as some of you probably remember, when the game launched, it was in some pretty rough shape, and back then we were day of launch it was actually 42%, so it was actually a negative review, and for the longest time it's been sitting at mixed reviews. However, last night was a pretty exciting night because for the first time we are fully in positive territory. You can see here that we switched into mostly positive, and the most recent reviews are at 93%, which I'm thrilled about. I think that's actually a little overly optimistic. The game has a lot of work yet to be done, but I think what that reflects is people have seen a lot of progress and they are optimistic about the direction things are going. And I am too. I feel like the game finally is starting to get its feet, and we're moving out of bug fixing territory into the fun stuff. That's really been the last 3 months is primarily stability and bug fixing, as well as quality of life changes generally to make sure people can stay in the game as long as they want to, do the things that they're trying to do, and not have the game fight them or kick them out. And that seems to be the case. It's been the case for a little while now, and it's incrementally getting better. But we've already started transitioning into more quality of life and new feature type things. So, for example, the save game system should be a little bit more robust than if you tried it out on launch day. You can now, in fact, I'll switch over to the game view for a second. If you go to the escape menu, you can see here it's now possible to save without quitting, save and quit. There's a series of backup files for each save slot, so if you want to go back to a previous save, you can now do that. It's still a manual process there, but at least then if something corrupts your latest save, you can kind of backtrack to save prior to that. We also have some refinements to the way derelicts are generated, so they're a little bit more fun and interesting and less annoying. You're seeing fewer floors that are missing beneath appliances. In fact, fewer floors and walls that are missing, and more things that are like real salvage targets. So you go into a derelict and you'll find the reactors missing, or the fuel canisters, or the RCS distributor, or nav console. Things that people actually would salvage are more missing, rather than just missing floor pieces. And that makes things a little bit easier to spot, but also a little bit more strategic. You want to find a derelict that has the right combination of remaining stuff, grab the pieces from remaining derelicts and use those. And actually, on the same note, I'll go back into the game screen. Helping to find leaks was a major issue, and on top of the missing floor things that we've done, we also added this visual effect, which I've kind of queued up here. So I'm standing in the airlock of my salvage pod, and what we'll see if I kind of move the camera down here to this derelict is I can open the airlock, and you'll see the gas kind of create visual effects as it flows into the room. And this is meant to help you kind of gauge where you have leaks in rooms. You'll see it travels through doorways in the direction the gas is flowing, as well as in the upper right-hand corner you can see the gas readout. Something we also added in the time since launch is resupplying. At K-Leg, you can now refill your batteries, your fuel tanks, your life support canisters, and stacking items. You actually probably saw that in the screenshot, but I'll go back down here so you can see it again. I may have to go around the corner to see it, but so now you can see we have piles of items on the ground. This has actually been in the game before, but we made some fairly fairly deep changes to the way these stacks work, so they're a little bit more reliable and easier to work with for us, mainly on the back end. But now you can play with the stacking feature, which, as you can see here, kind of tightens up the piles of trash on the ground so you can see a bit more. It makes it easier to organize your inventory. It's more like Neo Scavenger in that sense. Let's see. We also have, I'm going to go back up to the nav console, because it's a good example of a lot of the sort of audio refinements that have been made. So we have all these great sound effects, but at launch, a lot of them had yet to be hooked up. And you'll start to hear a lot more immersive kind of button clicking and alarms and various sort of UI, sort of immersive sound effects. So I'm going to hop on the nav console here. So on the nav console, you'll notice a little bit more interactive audio treatments, like moving the paper around here, selecting targets. If I retrack the camera on the target instead of my current ship, you hear like tracking noises in the map, similarly zooming in and out. All of these buttons have clicky noises now, so just generally feeling more like you're in the scene, you are the character that you're playing. And then that might actually be a good time to transition into what we're working on next. There's a few things that are already in there as a result of the feature voting. Let me switch over to feature voting so you can see it. So about, I want to say, a month and a half ago, we launched our first player-driven feature vote. So this is a screenshot of the menu where players could choose the features that they wanted to see next, and the pretty clear winner as a result of that was the That's an Order. It's the third one from the left. It's basically it was AI improvements so that you could make use of your crew more, get your crew to do things for you, and sort of make your life easier, but also generally just making AI a little bit more interesting to play with. And one of the things that has already been added in that vein is, switch back to the game. If I go down here to this airlock and I tell my captain to walk through it, I get a pushback from the game that says I will not open this airlock because I have roster orders which prohibit me from doing it. And so that was to prevent AI from randomly walking through airlocks just to, go grab food or go use the bathroom or something like that. It would depressurize the entire ship and kill everyone on board. So now, by default, they will not go through an airlock that has a pressure difference unless you give them specific permission. And that permission comes in two flavors. The first flavor is if you go into the crew menu, each crew member is going to have checkboxes on the far side here. One for permission to disembark, which is on by default, and one for opening airlocks, which is off by default. So if you click this, they'll be able to go through an airlock without you having to tell them to manually. And manually going through an airlock just means right-clicking on the airlock and then saying open, which I won't do here because I'm not wearing a helmet and I don't want to depressurize myself. But that should hopefully keep them in check in terms of not spacing themselves or the ship. And what's more, you probably noticed down here, Christian is now feeling empowered. I started adding a lot of sort of physiological and social effects to doing tasks and also not being told what to do. So this feeling empowered actually came from Christian standing there long enough in the game to basically decide for himself what he wanted to do rather than me telling him what to do. And this is more meant for the crew rather than yourself. But if you're going to micromanage your crew and tell them every little thing you want them to do in rapid succession, they're quickly going to get tired of it. Whereas if you just give them broad tasks to be done, and you sort of structure their tasks in terms of, well, I want you to focus on building, you decide when and what to build. Them making that choice is going to make their autonomy discomfort go down, which is what that green line represents down here. But on top of that, just merely completing a task will help with your sense of achievement, your sense of meaning, and self-respect. But it has like a fatigue cost. So if you do too many activities in a row, you're going to start to see fatigue penalties applied to your character. Also, you're going to have, what was I going to say? Fatigue penalties and social benefits. It'll come back to me. We're working on some pathfinding changes. Fewer cases where the AI literally stands inside another AI. They try and sort of maneuver around each other and treat each other like actual physical objects. I'd like hiring and firing to be a little bit more role-playing rather than just sort of on-off switch right now, which it does the job now, but it's more like going through a menu than it is having a negotiation. Yeah, I mean, generally I want to be able to play with the crew and have them pick up the stuff that you would find tedious to do. Zoning was the other thing. So in RimWorld, or games like RimWorld, you typically set up sort of depots for dropping off things or collecting things. That actually exists in Ostranauts, but I turned it off at launch time because it wasn't quite ready for prime time, and that is probably going to be one of the things included in the That's an Order update, because being able to tell your crew, all right, throw all the garbage in a pile over here, throw all of the valuable stuff in a pile over here, that's tedium. That's not something a player really wants to do manually over and over again. And a lot of the stuff that was done over the last couple months is kind of in that vein too. The sort of task system, the job system was experiencing a lot of bugs in terms of being able to queue up a lot of orders, like repair this entire bank of walls, or so those things are actually already in the game, the fixed job system. But yeah, that's kind of the current status and where we're going with features. But before I sign off, there's a couple other cool things I'd like to talk about and or share. First of all, manual is coming. One of the folks who was involved in the early testing of the game got in touch and was interested in doing a manual, and his name is Corey. He'll be doing sort of the in-game manual, and if you've ever played Shenzhen IO, or we were even kind of nerding out about the old Wing Commander manuals, the sort of manuals that are written in the style of like in-game companies. They have bits of lore kind of interweaved among, gameplay tips, or like an in-game magazine that's like, the Spacers Monthly that tells you, stories of things that are happening, but also like useful tips on how to survive. So we're looking forward to getting that in the game. Definitely as something you can just access through the menu at any time if you need it, but also possibly like in-game items that you can collect with kind of neat things to peruse. So that's on the horizon, and we also have some art to show off. And I think what I'll do is I'll switch back to here, and we have in-game brands. First of all, Cyrus has been doing some pretty cool in-game branding to give the world a little bit more of a lived-in feel. So this is one of the coffee brands in the company, Black Bull Cafe. So if you in the future, if you start to find in-game items, you'll notice like labels like this on a cup or even on a bag of coffee grounds or something, and Another example, this one's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Part of the early testing group, they were called the Testudo group. Uh, One of the bugs that came up frequently was the game would crash and all of your stat bars would say label 99 on them. So this is kind of his homage to that group of testers. So we came up with a rice wine brand that we'll add to the game to sort of celebrate their efforts. And also Weber Tools is another good example of one of these in-game brands that I'm looking forward to start using. You can already actually see a few in-game. I think the cutting torch and I think there's one other appliance in the game that already used this brand name, but being able to put kind of like commercial imagery and like advertisements or even just like stickers for the product on the control panel for the product, I think will be really cool. And then a couple pieces of concept art, which this first one you may have seen before if you looked closely at the trailer, but probably not just on its own, so I thought I'd share it again. This is one of Charlie Martin's pieces depicting the K-Leg shipyard, or the boneyard, where all the derelicts are just kind of floating around Ganymed 1036. So this is, when you start the game right now, what you're seeing, the kind of floating derelicts all around this asteroid that you're picking apart and piecing together a ship from. But he also did this one, which is Titan Shipyards, which you currently cannot visit anything outside of the K-Leg boneyard. We don't have the reactor gameplay set up yet. However, when you do start to travel to new places, one of those I would like to be is Titan, which has both a state-of-the-art kind of military shipyard for, it's a U.S. colony on Titan there. They are fairly well known for having really good hulls and really good ship systems, but they're also fairly isolationist. There's nothing yet in the game that really represents this technology. I'm actually looking forward to throwing a bunch of new hull styles and floors and walls and eventually new appliances and tools for players to use. But this is kind of a sneak peek at some of the kind of cool places we can go, but also hints at some of the future technologies we can play with. So yeah, it's been a good 3 months, I'd say. Like, it's slow but steady progress towards where we are now, a playable game. People are logging hours at a time in the game. Some of the save games are getting way up there in the double digits of hours. Now we're starting to switch into second gear, where I think we'll be able to start adding more gameplay elements, more story stuff, more features. Like I said before, this is the fun part where we get to build on the foundation we finally patched up, and hopefully have a lot of fun from here. So I hope you've enjoyed the kind of tour through things today since launch. I'll keep patching. I'll keep working on the game for the foreseeable future. This is a long haul. So I appreciate everybody who's been along for the ride. And I guess it bears repeating. The reviews on the game have steadily been improving, and I'm thrilled to see them moving in that direction. If you haven't yet reviewed the game, and you'd like to say a few things about it, I'd love to have your feedback. Similarly, I have the Discord and the Blue Bottle Games website and the Steam forums are all open to feedback, suggestions, bug reports. So, I want to hear it. But definitely any review at this point makes a big difference. So if you haven't yet, please do. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you around the forums.